Hey guys, it's Sharif with Fast Car Seats. Welcome, or welcome back if you've been here before. So I'm in the '05 Lexus GX, and I think one of the things that completely dates this car is the stereo. So the stereo, it's one of those old school tape deck, CD player, radio combos. It's got ugly wood all over. I'm totally over this thing. I'm ready to switch it out. And definitely after having driven a newer car for a while, I got used to CarPlay, got totally spoiled by CarPlay, and it's super convenient. So I bought an aftermarket head unit and I'm gonna put it in, and I've never done it in this car. My first time installing a head unit was I actually put in a double DIN display in the E36. It turned out pretty well. So this is going to be my second crack at putting in an aftermarket head unit, and we'll just get right into it. So here's that radio that I was telling you about. It's completely outdated and ready to be replaced. And today we're going to take on switching out the double DIN stock head unit and putting in a CarPlay head unit. So the head unit that I chose is the Pioneer AVH W4500 NEX. Lot of letters there. But basically the main reasons that I picked it were it looks really clean. Pioneer is a brand that I've used before. I'm familiar with their products. I like their products. It was a double DIN display. It also had wireless CarPlay, which I've never had before, so I'm gonna give that a shot. And it had a lot of, it had good reviews in terms of its functionality, responsive screen and things like that. And I got a good deal on it. I actually bought it on Amazon refurbished. So I saved like 200 bucks on it. So I'm all about saving money whenever I can. And that's why I do a lot of things on my own. So that's the head unit that I chose. I'm gonna look to put it in, and I'm hoping to talk you guys through how I do it, and probably learn from some of my mistakes along the way. So hope you enjoy following along, and hopefully this is informational if you guys want to do something similar to your car. And I guess the one thing that I'd say too is, while I'm doing this in an '05 Lexus GX, if you have a double DIN head unit, you'll be able to take away a lot of the things that I'm doing and apply them into whatever your application is. So even if you don't have the same exact model, you'll probably be able to get a lot of the same concepts. The panels might not be in the same places, but you'll get the general idea of how to do this in your own car. So hope you enjoy, and here we go. All right, guys, the very first thing that you're gonna wanna do is disconnect your battery. I get weird with electricity and electrical things. I don't know, I feel like I'm definitely always gonna get electrocuted whenever I do anything, even minor electrical. So definitely the safest thing to do is disconnect the battery. Really all you need to do is disconnect the negative terminal. So that's the black one. It's gonna have either a black cover, it'll probably have a negative sign on it. It is not hard to find the negative cable. And I don't know if they're always this way, but in the BMW, the bolt holding it in is a 10mm, and on this it's also a 10mm. So I don't know, maybe it's just always a 10mm. So anyway, you just do that. Okay, now we're disconnected, and we won't die when we work on this thing. So that's step one. All right, guys, now that we're back in the car, we've got to remove some panels. We need to remove this panel here and this panel over here. So I'm gonna just use this plastic panel popper to help me to make sure that I don't scratch anything or break anything as I'm working on that. And I'm gonna be gentle. One thing that is definitely one of my struggles is you have to be patient when you're working with old plastic parts so that you don't break them. And I don't have lots of patience. Okay, that panel is out. And that panel is out. And that's what we're looking at right now. And let's see. I don't think I'm gonna have to remove these just yet. I might need to when I figure out where I'm gonna when I put my head unit in, it's gonna have a connection for my phone to be able to, you know, set up like a USB cable. I'm probably gonna end up running that under here, but since I don't know that just yet, I'm gonna leave that there and I'm gonna figure out how to get to the rest of the radio. And so whenever you see like a thin, it's kind of common sense, but whenever you see like a thin piece of plastic, you want to try to not pull on that because especially as plastic gets old, it starts to become more brittle, and I don't want to have to replace more things than I have to because I have other plans for this car. It is going to take my money in other ways. So if I don't have to replace anything, then I don't really want to. Some bolts up here, in here, and here, so we'll disconnect those to get this whole bracket loose. Okay, I think it just needed a little convincing to come out. So this assembly is out and this is what we're going to be working on. So basically, let me see if I can. So you can see that each component, so this is the climate control right here. This is the radio. This is the, like, you know, clock and temperature and like whatever that basically that onboard computer, that's this component up here, right? So if you can see those, computer, radio, climate control. What we're going to focus on is this part. So we're going to have to undo these screws on this side and on the other side, and then that will get the radio out, and we can probably, I don't know if we can, yeah, we'll just reuse the same housing. So that's how that'll work. There's also a screw, you know, right there that holds the computer in. All right, we're feeling pretty loose here, guys. I just removed a bunch of screws, undid this tab right here. It definitely feels like this thing wants to come out now. So let's try this view. So basically we undid a bunch of screws back here. Pretty much if you see a screw, go ahead and make it loose. And here's that, I don't know if it's called an onboard computer, that's what it's called in the BMW community, which is where I'm more familiar, but this piece right here is coming out, and like I said, I'm gonna hit this with Goo Gone and see if I can get it to look black, because I hate this wood. All right, next thing here, guys, is we're looking at the back of the radio. So what's holding it in right now is basically this wiring, and so we're gonna unclip it, and we're probably gonna end up reusing these. Actually, we will end up reusing these. Okay, that's disconnected. That's out, that's out. All right, I think we're just about there. So now it's just a matter of disconnecting, looks like 2 more screws, and then this thing will be out. Okay, so we just had to kind of push that tab through. this tab through. Voila! Look at this ugly thing that's about to be removed from my car. Okay, so that was, I guess, the removal part, which is usually the most fun and maybe a little more time consuming because you got to kind of figure out how things come out and where things go. And now your car is pretty much just going to look like this. It's all ripped out right now and you can see all the insides of your car. And now we're going to start putting in the new radio. So I'm going to take it out of the box and get at it. Wiring harness. Head unit. Okay, looks like this install got a little more interesting because I think my head unit didn't come with like any manual or guide or anything. So I'm sure if you're seasoned at this, that's probably not a big deal, but I am not seasoned at this, and so have to figure out how that's gonna go. All right, it's now the next morning. Where I'm at right now with the install is, so I've wired everything in terms of the radio install, and I also got the steering wheel controls in. So let me just give you a quick overview of what that looks like. So from this view, which would be the back view, so this big harness in the GX, this is for your basically everything for your radio controls, the power to the radio and the speaker outputs. So basically, you know, like with any car, you just get the appropriate, you know, wiring attachments so that you can use your factory harness, and this basically does the rest. And then really there's not a whole lot of like thinking you have to do. You just put basically the like colored wire with the like colored wires. I elected to crimp my connections as opposed to soldering them. The reason I did that was there's a really good video by Holly that essentially explains that because the speaker wire is so thin, you can really mess up with soldering. And if you do mess up, you make the wire more brittle. And seeing as I don't want to always have to pull out my whole center console and everything to get to the back of my head unit, I elected to go for crimping, which keeps kind of the dexterity of the wire intact. And it's also actually a really strong connection. So the next thing is going to be the backup camera. All right, guys, so we're moving to the rear door here. So I'm gonna start taking it apart. I've just started to pop off some of these panels just so I can see what screws need to be removed, and it looks like there's one right here, so it's just a Phillips head. So I took that out, and then just kind of looking, this looks like it fits under this panel, so I think this panel, all of these, maybe not this top one, but I think these two need to come off first, and then we can probably pop this one off. So that's what I'm gonna get started on. Okay, panels off. One thing you'll want to note is whether your car has the backup camera from the factory. Mine obviously doesn't, since it didn't even have a screen, so there couldn't have been a backup camera. So mine just has this kind of blank slate, panel there. But if you have the backup camera from the factory, and let's say you were replacing it, you would just want to note that because there's already wiring through, there's already a path, you know, through for like a hole for the wires to go through. But since we don't have that, we're gonna have to create our own path for the first time. Okay, I'm gonna peel this back a little bit because I think I'm gonna run the wire through where the license plate bulb is. So it's basically just like two clips on either side, so you just kind of push one in and kind of tilt it down, and then it flops right out. So let me show you. This is out now, so I can leave that off to the side, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the frame here, run the wire up through here, and then when I put this back, it should look pretty seamless. Okay. So I've got this up through this pass. It's kind of like a little wire bundle. And I think what I'm gonna try to do is I'm gonna try to keep it on the inside of all of this as much as I can. So I'm just basically playing Frogger. I'm just running it through whatever the openings I see. Trying to keep it clear of any other bits I see. I feel like I'm playing Operation right now. I'm trying to get this wire to come in through this tiny little hole. All right, time to provide an update. So, got this thing on, and it looks really sharp. I think it looks really clean. Like we talked about before, wiring is coming up through the reverse light. On this side, it's coming in through here. And the part that was probably the hardest for me to figure out was just the wiring on this. On the Lexus, I ended up tapping into this reverse light. On the Lexus, it's not just a black ground, it's a white with a black stripe. And then this red blue is the positive. So on my model, I had to use the ground on this one, and then use the positive wire to power the LED lights. This particular model of license plate frame has LED lights on it. So that's how I got into that. Down here is some power, and then I ran the cable through here. I wanted initially to get it through this tube. That way it could stay just clean looking, but that ended up not being an option. This is pretty tight on there. It was going to be really difficult for me to get the wire through there. I was going to have to do some cutting, and then at that point it's like, well, then this kind of loses its purpose. So I elected to not do that, and I'm going to have the wire kind of hugging closely to it. It's coming in through this panel here. Didn't have to take it off, I just loosened it. It's coming in through here, and then basically now I have this wired to the front just so that I could like make sure that it was all working, and now I'm gonna go through and hide it so that it looks clean. Up front, radio is still out obviously, but so there's a separate harness that goes in the back of the radio to get all of this going, and here's where it connects in. Thankfully it's labeled. This is camera input, so that worked out well. It's getting power from where everything else is getting power from. I'll tape that up because there's a little copper exposed, but pretty happy with how this turned out. All right guys, install is done. So now I kind of want to just walk you through and just show you exactly how it turned out and how it looks. So, you know, from afar, obviously I'm blurting out my license plate, but you know, the frame looks like kind of any other frame. You open up this hatch, everything is hidden behind here. So basically the wiring comes in behind the license plate lights, kind of runs through all here, and then you can see that it's right there. I gave it the same amount of slack as this bundle right here, and then pulled back this panel, and then basically the whole passenger side of the car, and just started running the long RCA cable through all of these panels to the front. Let me show you more of that route. So this is still the passenger side, so I came in through, this is the door here, it's through all of this part right here. These two panels pop off, and then there's screws underneath there, or bolts I should say underneath there. You just loosen those, and then you can run the wire under all here. Through the front, same thing, just run it through all here, tucked in really nicely. Run it through kind of behind the glove box, and then up through this part here. And then this was all out before, so at that point, you know, you're kind of in with the rest of your wiring, and you can get it all in there. And then the dash kit is in. It looks great. I'm really happy with how this head unit turned out. I think it looks really clean. Behind here, so I've got the USB and the HDMI. What I did was I bought a thin HDMI cable. Here's the end of it, so you can see it's one that is pretty thin here. It's almost the same width as actually the iPhone cord, and that's all running in through here actually, and it just kind of comes through this whole panel, goes underneath the cup holder. So let me actually, underneath the cup holder and then through all of here, and then I just kind of have it popping out, and then I have this adapter so I can have an HDMI input and also charge my phone. So that's pretty nifty. And then I also started to peel back all of the fake wood stickers. So I can show you guys how to do that, but it's really simple. With my panel popper, that thing has come in real clutch and totally transformed the look of this. I love how it looks now. I'm really happy with how this all turned out. So yeah, guys, you know, pretty easy install. It took me, I'd say a day and a half, but that's because I had an issue with the backup camera. I was having a bad ground. So lesson learned, if you're working with electronics and they like work for a second and then come off, I guess that's a signal that you have a bad ground. So make sure that you check that. Once I figured that out on the backup cam, it got all working, and yeah, like I said, I'm really happy with how this turned out. Oh, I also ended up replacing my shift knob because when I had this all down on it, the old one had like the soft leather on it and it just tore it all up. So I guess a lesson would be that if you are working on this, cover your shift knob. I was going to replace that shift knob anyway because it was torn up and it had that fake wood on it. So, I mean, it's kind of silly having a carbon fiber shift knob in a Lexus GX, but at least it's not wood. So, but yeah, I guess the lesson would be cover up this stuff so that you don't tear it up. And yeah, that's about it. Thanks for watching, guys.